Hey everyone, this is Jay again. Thought today would be a great day to talk about safeties and safety play. So as I've said in a couple of the others, I started playing League, which absolutely shocked my brother, who knows me. I just don't play League. But like I said in one of the early videos, I joined for the competitive practice. And in the last week, the reason I bring up safeties is in the last week, 4 out of 8 games that I've played, or that I've won, I won through safety play. I'm still shaky on my shots. You've seen that in the videos. My aim is off. I'm working on that. I'm getting better. I'm up to like 78% success when I shoot a ball, which is not bad. It's not great. It certainly makes me a better than average player, but it doesn't put me back where I was, because back in the day it was 90 plus. If I shot at a ball, it was going in. I've had to make up for not being a great shot maker right now by playing better strategy and better safeties. And so I thought it'd be a good time to talk about safety play. Specifically, we'll talk about the types of safeties that there are. We'll talk about how to execute them. We'll talk about priorities in safeties, which safety is better than another safety, and decision making in safes. We'll talk about when to play a safe and when not to play a safe. And we'll talk about ways to screw up a safety along the way. So hopefully this one will be really, really important and really relevant to you. We'll start with some of the common safeties. So there are a few of them, and there's one real big rule about safeties to keep in mind, and that rule is only control one ball. If you have a safety where the cue ball has to do something and the ball you hit has to do something, then you're probably in a bad place. You don't want to do that. You want to control either the cue ball or the object ball, very rarely both, unless there's just no other option. We're also, by the way, going to talk about safeties in different games, because the strategy for safeties in 9-ball is different from the strategy in 8-ball, which is completely different. Both of those are completely different from the strategy in straight pool. And each of them has safeties that are specific to that game. So let's talk about generically what a safety is. What is a safety? A safety is when you, and I'm just going to use 9-ball for right now. A safety is when maybe you don't have a really good play, and so rather than shooting the ball in, you put the cue ball in a place, hopefully, where the other player can't make their shot. And preferably where it's very, very hard to hit. So there are different safeties. The one you're looking at on the table right now is probably the strongest of all the types of safeties, because you've limited not only keeping them from hitting the ball. If this was just here, or maybe here, there's some options here for the other player. And safeties are all about taking away their options. So here, they can try to kick at it, they can go this way to hit it, they can put a slight masse and curve around to hit it. There's a whole lot of options. But if you put them here, there's really only one option in this particular case, and that's to bank off of this rail and hit it. And again, you've just taken away all those other options. They're no longer looking at how to pocket this ball. They may try to pocket it. In my opinion, that's a mistake here. I would rather get behind it and kick the one ball up the table. We'll talk about shooting out of safeties afterwards, but this puts your opponent in a really bad place. It's even better if they're somewhere like here. Same safety, different place. Maybe you nestled it in like this. Now they have no options at all. All they can do is give the cue ball a ride and hope they hit that one. And it is hittable from there, but the thing is, you've just made their only option an incredibly bad option. There are, like I said, there are several safeties. This one, let's call it frozen behind another object ball that they're not allowed to shoot. That works in 9-ball, 8-ball. It does not work in straight pool. But the concept being that, the main concept of the safety being that, and let me move this up here so you can see that from another angle. The main concept being that they have no way to hit the ball that they've got to try for. And in general, just limiting their options to really take away the good options. Okay, so this one plays out a whole bunch of different ways. I used this one twice in the last week, where you basically roll off of the first ball and just stick the cue ball behind the other ball. And I hit that pretty poorly there because that's actually makeable. The other times I did it, that rolled up and this rolled in right behind like this, and I ended up winning the game off of this because they didn't have any options. One of them fouled, one of them actually got a hit on it, but the hit that they got left me a clear out because I had one of my balls over here and playing 8 balls, so they kicked off and hit it, but then I just ran out. So big advantage to safeties, if you can hide them where they can't get to the ball, is that you're pretty likely to get ball in hand or a favorable outcome of some kind, whether that's playing into another safety or whether that's being set up to run out the rack. So again, safeties are about limiting the good options that the other player has. Pool is about control. It's about controlling the table. It's about controlling what shots you shoot, controlling what shots your opponent can shoot. And safeties are a great way to control the table. Let's talk about when to play safe. So if I'm playing 9-ball as an example, and I've got something like this on the table, find a 9-ball here. Right down there, let's say it's up here. There's no way I'm playing safe on this. I'm playing to win. You always play to win. So the first thing, and if you remember our strategy, the first thing we look for is problem balls. Well, the first thing we look for is that we can hit our own ball. But after that, we look for problem balls. As a general rule, safeties are a great way to deal with problems, because you typically, if you play the safety properly, you end up with ball in hand, which gives you complete control over how you're going to break out your problem. So if I had a problem up here, for example, right now I have no way at all of breaking that out except trying to go around the table. I would probably try to go around the table and hit that because I've got a good angle for it. But if I missed it, I wouldn't even try to shoot the 3. I would just put the 3 in a bad place and make my opponent hit at it, because the next ball after the 3 is the 5. If I can't break this up before I get to the 5, I'm pretty screwed. So if I if I make the 1 and I don't hit that, my next shot I'm not even trying to hit the 3, I'm just playing safe. Because I've got a problem I haven't solved yet. And I'm too close to it to solve it. So I'm going to make the other guy solve it. And if I play this just right, I can actually win the game from here by making the other guy shoot. Basically just call safe and duck behind it. But okay, so let's say that 5 is not there. Let's say the problem is the 7-8 is unmakeable. I can try to break that out. I've got, like I said, I've got a shot to break it out by going around the table here. I would probably try that on the 1. But the other thing I could do is I could just cut the 1 over here and it can go up the table. I don't care. What I'm doing is I'm running the cue ball behind the 3. Okay, if I've got ball in hand on that 1, there's a whole lot better chance of me breaking this up. So I can just simply roll the cue up behind the 3. I hit it a little bit hard there. Obviously I didn't aim very well. But I leave that 3 like this. Now he's shooting at that 1. I blocked the straight kick to the 1. So he's basically got to go this way at it. And yes, he can get a hit like this. It's not that hard. But hey, look, it's over there by my problem, isn't it? He hits a little softer, I've got a way to get out. He hits it a little harder, I've got a way to go through the side. Here, I can try to just spin the ball down and nip it. There's a lot of things I could do from there. So by playing safe, you effectively set yourself up so that you're still in control of the table. He really didn't have any control. Okay, let's say, just for the sake of argument, let's say that when he kicked that the 1 went in. Now what does he do? He's still got to figure this out, and he's getting closer and closer to it. And if he gets to that without a way to break it out, he just gave me the game. So yes, you can make the 3, leave yourself an angle and come straight up and hit it. Again, you don't know what the outcome of hitting it's going to be. You could hit it on this side, the 8 pops loose and the cue just rolls out, and you got to make a bank for it. The bottom line is, this is not an advantageous place for him to be. And if it's me, I'm actually going to try to play it safe, where I come off the rail, I hit the 3 thin, I come off the rail, go up here, and try to spin back behind it, and just basically bump it a little bit, and leave my cue ball sitting back here somewhere. Again, a lot of options, but definitely consideration that may win you the game. Depends on how aggressive your opponent is and how good they are. If they're really aggressive, they go for this, get themselves a nice angle, and then try to make the 6 and bump it. Downside is, if they don't bump it, see what I just did to myself? Now I've got to hit that 7. I don't want to give the other guy ball in hand. Ball in hand is the devil. So I've got to try to play an up and down the table safety. There's not enough room. There might be enough room to go in and nip it, but I fouled. I didn't hit the 7, or nothing hit the rail. So again, safety play, very important. Okay, so let's talk about the kinds of safeties there are. So first of all, one of my favorite is, I'm going to call it stick the cue ball. And basically the way it works is very simple. You get into a position like this, where the ball you're shooting is close to another ball, and you just stop the cue ball. Too close to jump, now he's kicking at it. Again, favorable position for you, and you've got the option of taking another safety to keep control, or trying to shoot out from wherever he left you. So that's I'm going to call it sticking the cue ball. It's basically two balls are close together. You hit it really to stop the cue, and you just let that ball roll down to an end. And it works in both directions. It's not just that end of the table. The concept is that you really don't have a good shot, so you get the cue ball to drop back behind the object ball and try to leave them with a bad outcome. Works better if I have a further table shot. That one I actually could make in the side. And you can use your English to move the cue ball over a little bit. That is a perfectly acceptable save. And you saw I put right hand English, which, if you remember the one about spin, the right hand English makes it spin counterclockwise, which forces the cue ball to the right and the object ball to the left. In this case, that caused the cue ball, instead of sitting right where it was, it drifted to the right and put itself behind the 8. So, call that one stick the cue ball. Very, very common safe. Very useful in 9-ball and 8-ball, not so much in straight pool. A lot of times, if you have a cluster of balls that are down here, maybe you got a mess like this, somebody got a bad break, you got cluster down here like this, sticking the cue ball after playing another safe or after shooting a couple of balls in is a great way to deal with this cluster. I'm just going to move this so that it's not makeable. Of course, my opponent's shooting the 9, so I just call a safety, stick the cue ball behind the 8, and I just got one of my balls free, and I left him no shot. He shoots, let's say he shoots and he misses. My next shot, I can come over here, break the rest of mine out, and again, he's stuck. Maybe I get another ball in hand. But I really don't need one at this point. At this point, I can get out because I've got ball in hand. From him missing the 9 again, I can use the 7 to position on the 3, and use the 3 to break out the mess, to break out my 4. So, by playing those safeties, I just won this game. See, nice little breakout, put the 4 near the pocket. Now you'll notice that I did play for a leave on the 1 in case I got bad on the 4. I think here I'd probably shoot the 4 first. Don't have to, but I probably would. Simply because shooting the 1 gives me a natural leave on the 8. But you see, by playing those safeties and sticking them, I was able to take what was really an ugly mess in the center of the table, and piece by piece, I took it apart until I was ready to play for the win. And as soon as I was ready to play for the win, I went for it. Again, safety is about control, but playing safe will only give you an opportunity to win the game. Playing offense wins the game. So by playing that stick the ball safety the way that I did, I effectively made it very, very difficult for my opponent. He had to try some wild stuff to try to get a hit. We assumed that he didn't get a hit. And even if he did, he might have driven it into the mess and knocked my balls out anyhow. So it's a very good use of that safety. You look at the cluster, see what you can move out, not leave them a shot, play another safe, hammer out that 1 ball, and it may take you 10 safeties to get a really bad cluster broken up. That's probably an exaggeration, but even if it does take you 10 safeties, it doesn't matter because you're sticking them every time. I had an opponent in a tournament, and this was one of the Florida Pro Tour events. Um, he broke the 9-ball rack, and he miscued a little. Cue came off of the side of the one and buried itself in the pocket, and I had ball in hand with a cluster like this. What do you think I did? I came up and I just started sticking the cue ball on him. Now he's got to figure out how to hit that. And in 9-ball, there's a rule. It's called the 3-foul rule. He basically did something like that. And so I came down here and I used another one of the safeties that we're going to talk about. And I stuck him out here like this, and again he fouled and played the third one and won the game. Now I did have this backfire on me once, and unfortunately that was at the US Open against my first opponent. I had him on 2 fouls. I had a cluster down here like this. I had my ball was sitting over here, and I kept ducking behind the cluster, and he was on 2 fouls, and this ball had rolled up to here. I didn't look close enough, which is completely my fault, but I stuck the cue ball, and that ball went in. And I ended up with him playing me to 2 safeties, and then he got the run out and won. So there is a lot of strategy to this. You have to make sure that the ball that you're using to position your safety does not go in. You can really mess yourself up. And in my case, it lost me a match at the US Open. I hope I got all the last part in. If I didn't, I'll come back and re-explain it. But basically, make sure you don't make your ball that you're using to position for the safety. So the first generic type of safety is where you control the cue ball. And you've seen me doing that. I've been keeping the cue ball behind the mess. The second generic type is to control the object ball. And typically on that you're going to find that it's a stop shot on the cue ball because you want to make sure that the cue doesn't go anywhere. But the concept being, get the object ball to run itself back behind something. Okay, so those are much less common. Very hard to control the object ball unless you have something like this sitting down here and you've got the right angle that you can just roll it up behind that. You really don't. You don't have a good shot, so you basically just roll the object ball up behind the mess and then let them figure out how to deal with it. We really didn't care where our cue ball was because we were worried about our object ball. Those are easily the more rare of the type because you can put English on the cue ball, and it's just much easier to control the cue than it is the object ball. There are some specific cases like the one we just had where I would probably think about playing this kind of safety, but typically you're just going to play object ball or cue ball safety. Okay, so that's the first one, is sticking the ball. And sticking the ball is nothing more than playing a stop or a small amount of English to move the cue ball, preferably up frozen to another ball on the opposite side from wherever the object ball is. And a perfect example of one of those kinds of safeties would be something like this, where you've got the whole table for the object ball to go. You just don't care where it ends up, as long as it doesn't come back down here. And I mean, perfectly fine safety. There's a couple of shots out of there, but they're all low percentage. And remember, that's what we're worried about when we're shooting, is how do we get low percentage? Low percentage. How do we keep the percentages for ourselves higher than the ones we give our opponents? So in this case, we gave them a really low percentage shot. They might be able to get a hit, but the shot's just so incredibly low percentage, they probably don't even go for the shot. they're probably going to think about leaves. Okay, so controlling the cue, leaving it frozen. Now, if the cue ball is more than a ball away from the object ball, that is jumpable with the new jump cues. I say new, but they've been around for about a decade now. That is certainly jumpable with one of the short jump cues. It's certainly possible to masse out of that, but again, low percentage shot. It's a lower percentage shot than it would be if this ball wasn't here. That's a whole lot higher percentage than this is. So that's one of them. And that's probably the most common safety that I play, simply because it's so easy to execute. Okay, second safety we're going to talk about, and these work in any game, is splitting the table. So splitting the table works a couple of ways. The basic premise is that the object ball is down close to the rail on one end, and the cue ball is down close to the end on the other end. Yes, they can see the ball, but again, we've given them a low percentage shot, and if they miss it, it's our turn. And we've still maintained control of the table. So a shot like that, a safety like that is good, and there's a whole bunch of different ways you can get there. Assuming the one that's blocked can't get to the pocket. Let me go to the other side. I can simply roll the one down towards the pocket and roll the cue down towards the other pocket. Had the cluster there. If the cluster's not there, and this is probably the biggest mistake that happens on that type of safety, is that you leave them a shot on the ball that's not in the center of the table. So you want to make sure that your speed is good to, speed and or angle are good enough to put that cue in the center somewhere. And so this, is it makeable? Yes, that ball can even be cut in. But again, very, very low percentage. So this is a perfectly adequate safe. I'd rather have the one ball down further, but at the end of the day, it's going to accomplish our goal, and they're going to end up shooting to win by dropping the ball into this pocket. The second way that you can do it is if you've got a ball in the center of the table, deliberately overcut it, and bring the cue around the table, hopefully not into that corner pocket, which I just did, and leave the cue over there somewhere. Again, we've split the table, and this one ball is incredibly hard to make from there. Can it be made? Of course it can, but very low percentage in either direction, whether the cut or the bank. The other thing we could have done there is shot across the face of the ball, hit it thin, and just come down. And again, another great safety. Yes, the ball can be made by spinning it, cut it in that corner pocket. Yes, it can be banked up here, but at the end of the day, very low percentage shot. I'd rather have the cue ball in the center because it's a little harder to make that bank. But again, perfectly acceptable safe because we know if they miss, we're coming up with another shot and we get another chance to win. All right, so about that safety. Something to remember from our lines, eaves, and angles part is that this cue ball reverses off of this rail and comes almost straight up. So if you have a couple of balls down here, let's say we've got a couple of balls sitting down here, right? If I can get the cue ball to hit anywhere in here, I'm going to end up behind those balls because it's going to reverse. And so I can hit this a little bit harder. Skid down. Okay, I'm still safe even though I kind of hit it a little too thin. Again, we're splitting the table by shooting across the face of the cue of the one ball. And I hit that badly too. We just get a little better one. A little bit easier for my old eyes. and you see it reverse, and it comes up, and it stops behind, and if we're incredibly unlucky, we stop like we did, where we just gave them the game. We just sold out the game on that one. But you can see the idea there, and it works on this side too. You don't have to shoot across the face. I do think that shooting across the face is a better safety in my mind, simply because you have better control of the cue ball. But if we had something like this, then I play that same safety on this side. And you can see I'm going to end up behind that wall of balls, and I don't have to be perfect on speed. And I kind of hit that bad again. But you can see I'm still leaving long shots. Long shots are a legitimate way of playing defense. I cannot tell you how many people I've left with a shot like this. They've either tried for the bank, tried for the cut, and missed, and then I was able to run out on them. It's all about getting your angle into the rail and getting down behind them. You do want to hit that side rail first. Again, even though I hit it badly, it's a great safety. Now the other player is going to probably try to play the same safety against me that I just played against them. And if they hit it right, I end up over here somewhere. Which, even though it's in front of the pocket, it's still pretty low percentage. I mean, yes, I can probably make that, but what do I do about my mess down here? Nothing I can do. So that's the second one. The third one, this one comes in more in 8-ball than it does in any other game. Let's say the other player has their ball sitting in a pocket, and we have yeah, they got it sitting in the pocket, the cue ball's out here. The idea behind the safe is to just slow roll, to tap it and leave it behind the ball so they don't have a good shot. Unfortunately, I hit it a little hard. These are down in my list of priorities. They are certainly valid safeties. You can also run the cue off of the ball to get it behind the ball. Certainly a valid safety there as well, especially the further out this ball is from the pocket, because now they're kicking at it or banking at it or trying to make it work. Hopefully they haven't watched my line zagging little leaves portion, because then they know that this is just kind of a natural straight to the corner shot, and there's a very good chance of making the ball. But you get the idea. The idea is, forget about what you're shooting, forget about the ball you're shooting, and simply try to roll up behind something where they don't have a shot. And that would be certainly a much better lead if that had hit this half of the one. Okay. So we talked about sticking the ball, we talked about splitting the table, we talked about rolling the cue where we're not concerned about the other part of the shot. This is actually the safe I was talking about earlier, where they had a ball down the table here, and twice during league I was able to roll the cue ball directly behind that other ball and leave them with no shot. I was on the wrong side. Basically something like this, where I could just manipulate that ball into being behind the other one, and I didn't really have to worry about it because it was splitting the table anyhow. And that shot won me 2 out of the 8 games. Picking apart the rack like I did earlier with the stop shot, sticking the ball in the rack, won me probably 3 of them. And the fourth one, this was an interesting one. This option came up last night, and last night I lost 4-3 because I didn't shoot this shot. I had something like this. And so in looking at this, my options are try to cut the 3 down the long rail. And this game was being played on Oldhausens. Oldhausens, the angles of the rails are a little tighter, and when you come straight down the rail, it tends to hang in the pocket if you hit it too hard. It has to be exactly what they call pocket speed, which is making the ball only go fast enough to get to the lip and fall in. So one option was to cut it down the rail for the win. The second option was the long rail bank. When we get into banks, I'm going to show you a bank here that comes up all of the time. It's very good for the opposite corner. But there was a third option. And the third option was to take the deliberate foul and give him ball in hand by just rolling the 9 ball up here. And just hitting it nice and soft and rolling it to the rail. We give him ball in hand, but that ball he's got to bank it to make it. He's got to hit it, so he can't hit it soft. And there's really not a place on the table where I'm not going to get a hit from, other than if he manages to stick me behind the ball. I give him ball in hand, but he's got this shooting at the 9, playing 8 ball. Nothing wrong with that safety. Nothing wrong with it at all. He's got a couple of choices. His choice is to bank it across the side. This one actually came out a little, so he could go here and just shoot it up in the corner, which is probably what I'd do if I was him there. But if that ball's a little bit closer to there, I don't even have that option. Now what do? I've got ball in hand. I've got this. The only thing I can do is play for the win with the cross side bank, because there's just not another shot. And guess where the cue ball's going to be if I miss it? It's going to be somewhere on this half of the table. Of course, I just won the game from there, but the idea being that there is actually a safety option here. So when you're evaluating your options, you determine what your best percentage of winning the game is. Now, me, I play to win, but this shot to me is a little hokey for a league game. If I was playing and there was money on the line, I wouldn't think twice about it. The shot would have been to bury that 9 in between the two of them. If I was playing in a tournament and we were ready to cash, and we're on the hill, or anything like that, I would definitely think about that deliberate foul of moving the 9 up against the rail. It's not that hard to do, and giving the guy the ball in hand, because my other options are lower percentage. Again, talking about percentages, from here I can make that 3 cross corner a pretty decent amount of time, but as you can see, it's not always perfect. I would say it's probably a 30% shot. To me, that's a desperation shot here. Maybe I make it 1 in 3. Okay, that's a 1 in 3 chance of winning the game. If I roll that 9 ball, on the other hand, especially if I roll it right up against the 3, as close to the 3 as I can get it, now I just took away that bank too. Now he's banking for the corner. And that's certainly a legitimate shot, but either way, his odds of making this are probably that same 1 in 3 that my odds of making the 3 in the far corner are. Maybe 1 in 2. But I'm still in better shape from a control perspective, even giving him this ball in hand, rather than trying to shoot out the 1 in 3 I make shot, followed by a 4 in 5, followed by a 1 in or 7 in 8. You add all those percentages together, my odds of getting out from where I was are fairly low. because you're adding all of those percentages together. If I'm 30% on the first ball to make it, and I may not even be 30%, if I'm 30% to make that, I'm 80% to make that, well, I still have that 70% chance of missing this ball. I still have that 20% chance of missing that ball and a 10% chance of missing that. You add those all up, and average them out, and it's probably like a 45% chance to win the game from there. Whereas if I put him into this position with ball in hand, he's maybe 50% to win the game, but if he doesn't, I win. And I've got like a 90% chance win, or an 80% chance win from there. I'm not actually doing the math, I'm just throwing numbers. So you see, that is actually a viable option, especially if I can roll it up against that, where now he really doesn't have any good options. And I've also set him up where I don't even make the one, I just play safe and make him move it out of there for me. Again, it's about control, not necessarily the shot making, okay? Even though I kind of messed that up, I wanted to put the cue at the other end. What's he going to do from here? What are his options? He can try to thin the 9 and have it go cross-side, which is a very, very low percentage shot. It's got to be perfect. Because the 3 is enough in the way that just a little bit off, he's got like half the pocket to aim at, and just a little bit off and he hits a 3 and the 9 rolls over to that side, sticking him again. His second option is to just hit into the 9, move my 3 out of the way and hope I miss. And I'm going to have this almost straight in shot on the 1. He can try to play a safety, which is probably what I would do from here, which is try to come off the rail, thin the 9. Hopefully the 3 doesn't go right in front of the pocket. And I maybe leave something like this where it's a long shot with a tough one afterwards. The point being that, again, we gave him really bad options that open up the game for us. So that's kind of how this whole safety thing works. When you have bad options on the table and you want to increase your odds, that's when you play safe. So it's going to be a little different for every player. I'm comfortable cutting that 3 in the side. Some people aren't. So for me, this is a shot. For them, this would be either play the 1 or just a safety. If the 1 wasn't on the table, for me, I'm shooting at that 3 because I want the chance to win the game, this shot, and I know I'm going to leave the cue over here, which is kind of safe anyhow. The downside of that is that if I miss, I didn't control what he's shooting. And this actually brings up another type of play that some people do. I'm not a big fan of it, and that is two-way plays. In this case, I could say to myself, well, I can make the 3 on the side, and the cue's going to be over here for the 8. If I make the 3, I've got my shot, but if I don't, he's got a tough shot. And that's the essence of two-way safeties, or two-way shots, is when you say to yourself, if I don't make it, then he's not going to have a shot. I'm not a fan of those types of shots. And the reason I say that is because it's an uncommitted shot. You're not committing to making the shot. Now, there's a little difference between that and you're playing 8-ball and you've got a table like this where everything's down at one end and I deliberately stay on the end away from the 8, that's perfectly acceptable. Okay? I mean, it is perfectly fine to just shoot shots on that end of the table, knowing that that you're staying away from the threat of him making the 8 ball. Okay, I can sit here and shoot these, and I don't even have to worry about them. If they don't go in, it's not that big a deal. I can just keep the cue ball down at this end, and I'm really just playing the split table. And I have no problems with just continuing to run the balls in, leaving that down there, knowing that I can get out from here. And if for some reason I screw it up like I just did, knowing that he's going to have a really, really tough shot. So there's nothing, unless of course I miscue and jump the cue ball off the table. That's wonderful. So anyhow, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get to these shots where you're, like you just had, you got this really kind of tough shot, and you say to yourself, if I miss this shot, he's not going to have a shot. That's not really a good thing. So I'm back. You heard my phone ring there at the end. It's been a couple of hours. I had to actually go do some work. Scary thing. I want to dig deeper into something. I took the opportunity while I was away to download the videos from the camera so I could clear it off, make some more room to do some more videos. And along the way, I took a look at what we talked about earlier, and I kind of left the split the table safety, which I feel like is one of the most important safeties in the game, in any version of the game. And I think I sold it short. I think we need to go into a deeper explanation of that one because it is such an important safety. So let's talk about the mechanic of the split the rail safety, or split the table safeties. So the concept, pretty straightforward. You shoot the side, shoot thin on the ball, and it's very thin. You want to shoot as thin as you can to get the best angle into this rail, or into that rail, depending on which way you're going. This safety is more effective when you shoot across the face of the ball. It's just a more natural, more difficult to shoot shot that you leave, and it's easier to execute. If you shoot on the same side, that ball will tend to come out, and you also tend to shoot this harder in order to get that reverse spin to come around the rails. So to do the same shot, I have to hit that very thin, and you can see I actually made that shot, which I did not want to do. Let's try that again. If I shoot it on the same side of the cue zone, so the cue's to the left of the center line. If we call this the center line, the cue's to the left. So if I shoot to the right, I'm shooting across the face. If I shoot to the left, I'm shooting on the same side of the face. And so the idea being to hit it soft and thin, you can see I'm having a hard time keeping it out of this pocket. Where if I shoot across the face, I can shoot it harder, I can shoot it just as thin, but now that ball's not going anywhere, and you can see I'm going to leave this pretty darn good. Again, makeable, but because I shot across the face, it's easier to control, and that's why I said earlier that I like to shoot across the face rather than on the same side. The reason for shooting on the same side is if you have a ball down here that you're intending to hide behind, then you can shoot the same side and come down there and try to duck behind that ball. And I wasn't successful, and I probably sold out that game. If I hit it a little harder, it does move up behind there. But you can see I'm having more trouble controlling it because of the approach angle and the amount of English that I have to put on it to get it to do what I want it to. Now, splitting the table does work on the side rails as well. I mean, you can split the table this way and still come up with a pretty good safe. You have to hit it a lot softer. But you can see, I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. I would not be upset with myself if I left somebody that. Yes, there's a bank there, but again, the bank is a lower percentage than just shooting it in. Okay, so I really wanted to cover that because splitting the table is probably one of the strongest safety plays you can do. And of course, the obvious counter to this is to split the table the other way by just deliberately over-banking that 5 and splitting it out, and hopefully not scratching. And so, I mean, this gets into a whole series of splitting the table type safeties that eventually somebody screws up, and that's how the game is won. So there are a whole series that go behind these. Typically though, they're just you repeating the same safety the other guy just did and trying to do it better. You know, of course, there's also, you don't have to split it with, remember we said that the 2 things you can do are to control the cue or you control the object ball. So the same safety, but controlling the object ball is just as valid, which is to send the object ball to the other end of the table and leave the cue ball on this end. As I said before, it's easier to control the cue than it is the object ball, so this is more makeable than it would be if I had played the object or the cue ball safety. So anyhow, so those are kind of the general safeties. I do want to take a few minutes and talk about some game-specific safety play and strategy. And the first one, of course, since I'm a 9-ball player, we're going to talk about a 9-ball safe that comes up quite often. And what that is you got something like this, and the other player, because you would never do this, you would just split the table here, right? But the other player decides they're going to play it by tapping that to the rail and leaving you against it. Now, what do? That's a tough safety to deal with. It really is. Because, I mean, you could try to nip it and hit the rail yourself, but if you hit it too hard, you sell it out. I'm going to take advantage of my knowledge of the rails, and I'm going to play around, and I hit that too hard. The idea was to stop out there and leave them a long one for the same thing. This is a double kiss safety, by the way. If you watch it, the cue hits the one hits the rail, comes back and hits the cue again. Now, and the cue ball stops that. Now you can sit here and play this game with the other person up to the point, and we need to talk about rule here, up until the point where this ball is actually frozen. And to see that it's frozen, you have to get where you're looking at the light reflecting off the table, not shining on the ball. So you have to get on it and look at it like so, where you're shielding the light. Okay, so here's where a lot of players will take advantage of someone not knowing the rules, or they just don't know the rule themselves. The rule is that you have to drive, you have to make contact with your ball for a legal hit. You have to make contact with your ball, and then either the cue ball or the object ball has to hit a rail. There's a caveat. If the ball is frozen, meaning that the ball is touching the rail and is actually in contact with the rail, you cannot drive it to that same rail. It has to go to a different rail. And I'll show you this one in a second, there's an 8-ball safety that you can play that I played pretty successfully the other day, where you roll the cue ball up to that rail. So you see the one ball didn't get to a rail. The one ball did not get to a rail. If the cue ball had not made contact with this, that would have been a foul. But it did, so it's a legal shot, and we're all good. And so the the strategy in your double kiss safety is to hit it in such a way, and you'll notice that if we do this successively, you'll notice that each time the one gets a little bit closer to the rail. Okay? Each time we do this little tap safety, that one ball gets a little bit closer to the rail until finally it's frozen. Whoever freezes that one ball to the rail and makes the other player shoot this has won this little exchange. Because once it's frozen to the rail, you can't just tap it back into the rail, you gotta pick another safety. And for those of us that are watching, that safety would be split the table. It's taking advantage of knowing the rules and being able to control what you're doing and have a plan for how to beat the other guy. Now me, honestly, I'm not even gonna wait. I'm just gonna go ahead and split the table. Right from minute one, I'm not even gonna get into that little push safety battle. I'm just gonna split the table. Now he's got a problem. And so that kind of safety is good for all types of games that are what we would call rotational games. So the types of games are group games. That's 8-ball, cribbage, cutthroat. You could make a case for P-pool if you play that. We won't get into that one. Any type, those are your group games. Then you've got your rotation games. That's 9-ball, 10-ball, true rotation, which is 15-ball rotation, which is Efren Reyes' game. He's crazy good at that. Then you've got what I'll call, for lack of a better name for them, free shooting games. Those are games where you don't have a group, you can shoot any ball that's on the table. And those games include straight pool and one pocket. Basically, any game that you don't have, you're not forced to shoot a specific ball or a specific group of balls. So splitting the table, great one for most games. Not necessarily, it's only good for free shooting games in the case where there's one ball left on the table. And there's a different strategy for that. So splitting table, good one. That little safety battle where you're tipping the ball, that requires a rotation game, or one where the last ball on the table, maybe the 8-ball, if you're playing 8-ball, is up near a rail, but not touching it. Because if it's touching and you do that, it is a foul. But the idea being to freeze the ball. If you're going to try to freeze it, I highly recommend that you slow roll with top English, simply because that top English or no English that allows the carpet to put top English on it will help the cue ball to move closer after the hit, which stops the one ball closer to the rail. Again, I don't play that safety very much anymore. I used to when I was first learning. I would rather split the table or do something like this where they've got a really tough cut to get out. Makeable, yes. Low percentage, very much yes. Okay, 8-ball safeties. So the ones that you see the most in 8-ball are the frozen cue ball, where you freeze the cue ball to an object ball where they don't have a group, an easy shot on their group. The stop shot that we used to pick apart the rack earlier, and splitting the table. That's really the main ones in those games, aside from just general theory. Straight pool has a couple that are worth knowing about. The biggest mistake you can make in straight pool when playing safe, and I'm talking about, and you end up quite often in straight pool with an intact rack, and when you do, There are some safeties against the rack that you should know about. The biggest mistake you can make, though, in a straight pull safety is hitting the corner ball. Okay, so straight pull. We made our shot, but we missed the rack. Okay, so what are the safeties that are good for this? From the top of the rack, there's a pretty good case for hitting the opposite front ball with English to the middle of the rack. So just hitting it like so, stick it in, and you see my 12 ball hit the rail, and hopefully I didn't leave the other guy's shot. Not a strong safety though, because there are shots that will come out of it, like trying to go cross-side with the 15, and if I make that shot, in theory, now I'm running. So you can do that one, but you don't want to. A better safety for the same situation is to come up from the bottom of the rack, even if that means you're kicking into it. And what I mean by that is, so I said you don't hit the corner ball. Okay, I'll see a lot of people that will try to thin that corner ball and bring the cue ball back. The problem with that, and again, I'm not a straight pull expert. I love the game, but I'm certainly not an expert. The problem with this is it opens up the rack. And so if I hit that just a little too hard, the 10 comes out, I got a straight shot on the corner. I can see the 11 ball to try to cut it up the table. Most importantly, I've set myself up to be safed in the same way, and I can try and bury the cue ball in the rack on the other guy. So I really don't want to hit that corner ball if I don't have to. A much more effective safety from underneath the rack, or on the sides for that matter, is to hit the second ball in the rack. Now the reason the second ball is a better hit is because the second ball is going to stop the cue ball when it hits it. So I can actually hit this kind of firm, break the other half of the rack all to hell so it's wide open, but not give the other guy a shot. See, I've just opened up that part of the rack. There is no shot there for the other guy. He can't play safe this way, because if he does, the cue ball's going to go down there and I'm going to have a shot at the 11. He can't play the safe this way. He kind of could here, but he's risking a scratch. He certainly can't hit into it. That's just ugly. So I kind of screwed the guy over because I managed to stick the cue ball. Remember sticking the cue ball? I managed to stick it against that second ball. Okay, so, and that works actually twice as well from under the rack as it does from on top of the rack. So again, the rule there is don't hit the ball on the corner. Hit the ball that is the second ball, which in this case is either the 4 or the 2. Hit that ball, preferably so that you're hitting into it in a way that sticks it to that rack. And you can see I've just screwed this guy completely. He really has no shot at all. He's got 2 things he can do from here. He can try to thin the 14 and run it down to the corner, but I'm going to shoot at the 9. He can try to thin the 12 ball. If he does that, the 12 ball rolls out. Now I've got a shot on both sides of the table. Wherever the cue ball ends up, I'm happy. And if he happens to get in a perfect place under the rack, I just shoot into 2 and play the same safety on the other side. So second ball from the end, that would be, in this case, you just put those back in, into the 10, into the 4, into the 2, into the 6. If you're going to thin the rack, let's say we've got one that just didn't break up very well, it broke a little bit, and you're over here on the corner where you really don't have a good shot, you can hit the second, which would be the 2 ball, or the 14 ball, which is the middle ball on the bottom, thin and just try to leave the cue ball back over here. And as long as you get past the bottom there, you should be okay. And that 6 ball, by the way, is a perfect breakout from 2 different places, from here and from here. It's a perfect break shot on the rack. I did end up leaving myself a shot at the 12, but even if I make it, what am I going to do with it? Nothing. So stick it to the rack, get the 12 out of the way. That's the right shot there. It is not to make that 12 in the side and leave yourself with no shot. So you get the idea. So 8 ball or straight pool, stick it on the top, stick it against the rack. That's the key to this whole thing. Stick it against the rack and blow the other side out of the way so that the other guy can't give you a shot at the other half of the table. It's especially effective shooting into the second ball from the side where I can stick it to the rack, and you can see now, really not a great shot here. The 10 is probably makeable, barely. But if he misses it, I've got a wide open rack and I'm off and running. So those are the safeties for 8 ball, or for straight pool. And you heard me mention before banking. So if I'm over, let's say he left me up here on a still intact rack. I could, as I just said a couple minutes ago, I could try to shoot at the 13 and stick the cue to the rack, but I'm so far away that that's going to be difficult to control. So the better shot here is to kick off the rail and hit into the 10, because that's going to stick for sure, and it blows some balls out for my opponent to try to have to work around. And you can see, perfectly good safe. Much better than trying to stick it on the rack. He's going to be playing safe back at me because I didn't leave him anything. And his safety is going to be to drop me and freeze me in behind the 11. And now we're off with our typical straight pool safety battle that you see on every rack that doesn't get cleanly broken. We'll just be sitting here playing safeties at each other for a while. Although I just lost because the 15 ball is makeable. And so is the 12 for that matter. So anyhow, there's a lot of strategy behind safeties. And they can win you the game. They can, no kidding, win a game for you. They're worth practicing, they're worth trying, they're worth understanding how they're working. That concept of picking a ball out of a cluster while denying your opponent a good shot is money for 8 ball. Here's something I kind of said, but I never really was explicit about it. You hear me talking about playing to win. Well, what that means to me is that I want to control the table in such a way that I can solve my problems while denying my opponent good opportunities. And then once I've solved my problems, that's when I start shooting to win. One of the biggest mistakes you can make, especially in a game like 8 ball, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to have everything in the world out and wide open, but your 7 ball is stuck where you can't make it, and you go ahead and shoot the rest of your balls in. That is the absolute worst mistake in 8 ball. Every time playing in a league, it's actually a bar league, meaning that it's played in bars, not that it's bar pool. But I can't tell you how many people I've seen that would start here and they'd make some great shots along the way, and they run everything out, and they're shooting beautiful shots, but they never dealt with that problem, and as a result, they get down to the point where they've shot everything in, made that great bank shot there, but now they've got this. Guess who wins this game? 90% of the time. It's the person with stripes. And the reason is because they have control of this. They can do all sorts of stuff. They can try and run the table. The 15's makeable from over there to shoot it in this corner. They can try and run the rack. Personally, I wouldn't do that because the 8-ball is still going to be a problem after the 15's in. They can shoot for ball in hand by using one of the safeties we just talked about. What does the guy do when you stick him behind that 14? Which I didn't do. What do you do? What does he do when you leave him this? You can't do anything. You might as well just pick the ball up and hand it to you because there's not a good breakout shot. We can't even jack it up and try to come around and get that nice little 3-railer. We might be able to get it 2 rails, but the 13's probably in the way. Might be able to come this way, that way, and nip it, but of course you only got a quarter of the ball on this side to aim at. He's screwed. I just got ball in hand. Guess what I'm doing? I'm going to use his 7 to move the 8-ball out. See that? Now by getting that ball in hand, I was able to solve the problem, and now I've got an easy run from there. So, worst thing you can do in 8-ball is to run down to the last ball without breaking out your problem. If you make the mistake of making too many balls, or if the problem gets created as part of your shooting, you need to stop right there and evaluate what you've got. I've seen people miss the 8-ball and put it in trouble. And as soon as they do that, guess what I start doing? I start playing safeties. I start deliberately hooking them, moving my balls around so they're all easy shots. If I've got a weird part of the run, I'll move that around, but I'm playing safe every shot until I'm ready to run this table. And I can do that because I have control of it, and what they've got to do now is they have to make a fabulous, super, immensely gratifying, amazing shot in order to get to a place to be able to win. There is, from here, I'd say it's more than 90%. I'd say it's 95% or more stripes wins this game, unless they just dump a ball by accident. But even then, they're still, it takes 2 or 3 misses by stripes before this is won by solids. So even a pro is in trouble if they're the 7-ball here. I don't care who you are, you're in trouble if you get to this point. And part of the reason they're pros is because they know they're not going to get to this point deliberately. They're not going to do this to themselves. Somebody may do it to them, but they're not going to do it to themselves. And it takes an immense amount of skill to lock, or luck, to lock somebody up like that deliberately. It's more likely an outcome of the way the break went. So anyhow, so safeties, I kid you not, these will win you games. They're probably more important in 8-ball and straight pool and those types of games than they are in 9-ball. Just remember, problems have to be solved early, and if you can't, play safe until you can, or until your opponent does it for you. And never ever ever shoot out all of your group, leaving yourself only the problem ball. If you do, you lose every time. So anyhow, that's it on safeties, safety strategy. I think that'll do it for today. I hope that this was informative. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like I said, it's a matter of discipline, and it's a matter of understanding when to play it safe and when not to play it safe. And just to reprise that, because it's so important, you play safe for a reason. You never play safe just because you don't think you have any options. When you play it safe, the goal of a safe is to leave the other person with the lowest percentage options that you possibly can. Making them kick multiple rails, making them jump or masse, or just plain leaving them where they can't do anything, pick the ball up and hand it to you. That, by the way, brings me up to 1 in 9 ball. I almost forgot. I've seen this happen in 9 ball a couple of times. It actually happened to me in a game where I was playing, I think I was playing Howard Vickery at the time when it happened. The balls, after a shot, ended up like this. The problem was that there was a ball down here. And so for a while, the two of us were playing safeties against each other around the table, and it got to where there was a safety like this, which is an extremely thin cut across the face of the ball. And when I shot at it, I missed it. Just like that. Okay? And what Howard did is he took the ball in hand, he shot the ball in, and then he handed me the ball. Okay, now remember, 3 fouls is a loss of game in Texas Express 9 ball, which is what we were playing. So I had this. So I had this, and I'm on 1 foul. Now here's what happens. I can try and shoot this. There is no way to hit that 7 legally. There actually is, but it's a trick shot that involves hitting the rail, hopping up, and coming down on top of it. Very, very low percentage. The right shot here was actually the one I took, which is just to go ahead and take the 2nd foul, break it up, and hope he doesn't run out. The problem that you're in here is, let's say I try to do something with this, okay? I try to do something with it. I'm on my 2nd foul. All he's got to do is drop the cue ball behind that 8, and I'm done. Game over. The 8 would have been out a little more. But so sometimes if you're behind on fouls, especially in 9 ball or any other game that has a 3 foul rule, like 10 ball sometimes does, 9 ball does, sometimes the best shot is to take the intentional foul and just try to put your opponent in a place where he can't stick you again, because if you do something like that, he's just going to run over here and slide you in between them. And now you're done. You just lost that game. So it's worth understanding that shot exists, that if you don't have any shots, sometimes the right shot is to deliberately foul. Just like with that shot that was over here with the 9 ball and the 2 against the rail. Sometimes the best shot is to actually foul yourself, but do it in a way that puts the other guy in a bad position. Remember, the point is, increase your odds while decreasing his. And with that, I'll let you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been informative. Have a great day. Thanks.